Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly PFF Wisdom of Solomon podcast with Anthony Treash. This is where we get to talk about some of the big topics around the National Football League. But before we get started, I want you to get to know Anthony Treash. He's a young guy here that works with us at PFF, does a lot of our data, builds a lot of the graphics that you may see on our YouTube channel when you're exploring through a lot of our content. So, Anthony, first of all, I just want to say hello to you. How you doing today?
Pretty well. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Tell everyone what it is that you do here at PFF and how do you help our content to look so good each and every day?
Yeah, I'm not sure how good I make it look, but I'm kind of a jack of all trades around here, building graphics, doing some graphic design there, as well as just doing, stuff like this, some video content, as well as publishing some articles here and there and doing some radio hits. So it's a lot of fun.
How old are you, by the way?
20 years old.
20 years old. How did it come to where you end up working here at PFF, which I call pro football's mecca for data analytics?
Yeah, started off just doing data collection part-time and just grinded that out weekly. A lot of late nights, a lot of sleepless nights, helped out with building some of the preview packets we make for the television networks, which I know you're familiar with.
That's right.
And
so that means when the TV networks like, say, NBC, Monday Night Football, and ESPN, CBS, and Fox, when they do the games on Sunday, you are the guy who's sending them the data. You're like roaming through our system to pull out those data points to help announcers sound smart on TV.
Yeah, I did that last season, and unfortunately this season didn't have enough time for it, so we have another good group of guys taking that over. But yeah, that's what I did some of the time last year.
See, I just think that's the coolest thing. Mm-hmm. You're 20 years old, you're right out of college, right? Mm-hmm. And this is your first job out of college?
Yes, sir.
And you get to work doing NFL football, data analytics, working with top broadcasters to help them sound smarter on the air. You enjoy that? You have fun?
Yeah, when you put it that way, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun around here. Everyone's great. The culture around here, it's a good time.
Well, it's good to have you. And that's why we're going to kick off our first segment. We want to talk about who poses the greatest threat to the New England Patriots and their ability to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. As we now know, the Patriots just lost their first game of the season to the Baltimore Ravens. And after watching Lamar Jackson just kind of shred what we thought was one of the great defenses we had seen in a long time by the Patriots, I'm starting to think now, okay, the Patriots are going to have maybe a couple of roadblocks along the way. We can't just pencil them in at Super Bowl 54 in Miami. There's a couple of teams out there. Here are two that come to mind, and I want to get your thoughts on it. First, Baltimore Ravens have proven to be formidable. And with Patrick Mahomes coming back to the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're another team that could serve as an impediment to the Patriots getting back to the Super Bowl again by the time this thing is said and done. Just give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I would 100% agree that it's really down to three teams for the AFC. It's the Patriots, Ravens, and the Chiefs. And, with the Patriots, they were undefeated. A lot of people were kind of suspect on them just because of the quarterbacks they faced. And granted, this defense is elite. It's very well the best in all of football. But they hadn't played a whole lot of good competition. And then, prior to this Ravens game, you looked ahead at that 5-game stretch they had coming up, and we were really going to find out who the Patriots really were. And, if that Ravens game is any indication, then, the AFC is essentially running through Baltimore at this rate.
Wow.
And, we're really going to find out a lot about the Patriots because over the course of the next 3 weeks, they're going to face the second highest, fourth highest, and sixth highest graded quarterbacks.
Who are those quarterbacks?
Yeah, Carson Wentz,
okay.
Dak Prescott, and Deshaun Watson.
Whoa, okay.
And then that fourth game, they'll play Patrick Mahomes.
There you go.
And granted, he is not a top 10 quarterback in PFF grade this season.
Yeah.
But he's still a great quarterback, and if he can get back to what he was last season, it's going to be a huge test for him.
First, I want to go back and talk about the Baltimore Ravens because the way they run the football, one might argue, and we here at PFF, we believe points come through the passing game. We believe that the way to win games more consistently really is about the passing game and about the efficiency level of your quarterback. However, there are those times where the pathway to victory by using the running game offers you a tremendous opportunity to maybe get that upset like what we saw in the Sunday night game with the Baltimore Ravens. Just look at some of the data points here. The Baltimore Ravens in terms of our PFF data, shows that they lead the league with 13 rushing touchdowns, most in the NFL. Runs of 10 yards or more, 45 of those, first in the NFL. Total rushing yards, they lead the league there. Rushing yards before contact, that means before anyone even touches the runner, okay? 739 yards, first in the NFL. And then here's the critical one. Rushing touchdowns, in terms of first downs, First downs by way of running the football, 89 of those, first in the NFL. And the reason why I bring that one up, because that's where you see Lamar Jackson breaking the backs of defenses who want to get off the field on third down. They force him into third and long. Lamar Jackson drops back. He's surveying, buying more time, extending the plays. Then he takes off and runs and converts it into a first down. Defenses wear down. In fact, we even saw this with the New England Patriots defense in the Sunday night game, where just a few moments where Lamar Jackson is able to extend plays, create a new set of downs, and you could even see a team like the Patriots, who are normally disciplined, very tough and physical, you could see the momentum being sapped away from that team when Lamar Jackson was making big plays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this Baltimore offense, it's unprecedented in regard to the modern day NFL. It's nothing like we have ever seen. And, you know, as you said, we here at PFF, you know, we don't value the run as much as we do the pass. However, when it's the case of the Baltimore Ravens, they're the outlier in that rushing is valuable to them. You know, we talked at length about EPA last week. You know, expected points added basically measures efficiency on a per play basis. And Lamar's been great when he's dropping back to pass because they're 7th in EPA per pass right now.
That's phenomenal.
However, when you look at the rush, they're first by a significant margin, and they're in the positive in that column when only 4 teams out of the 32 have a positive EPA per rush, so meaning they're better off.
They're better off throwing the ball.
Pretty much every team is better off throwing the ball. But in the case of the Ravens, they got to pick or choose. You know, they can pass the ball, they can be successful. Rush the ball, you're going to be successful.
They have an offense coordinator in Greg Roman. Seems like everywhere he goes, his teams are able to run the football. It was he who was the offensive coordinator for then Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, when Colin Kaepernick was the quarterback, that he installed that pistol formation, much in the same way you see with Lamar Jackson, where they end up going to the championship game 3 consecutive years, I believe it was. And the 49ers with Frank Gore, they led the league in rushing with a combination of Frank Gore and Colin Kaepernick. Greg Roman goes to the Buffalo Bills. They had Shady McCoy. They had Tyrod Taylor. The Bills become the league's #1 rushing attack. And now Greg Roman shows up in Baltimore, and he's got probably one of the best ever when it comes to quarterbacks and their mobility and athleticism. Lamar Jackson and now Mark Ingram, and they're leading the league in rushing. And so to me, there's no coincidence. Wherever Greg Roman goes, you're going to be able to run the football.
Yeah, and, you know, Greg he's very fortunate that he has Lamar, because we're talking about, you know, an outlier. We've said it before. I mean, this guy has 20 broken tackles. That's 12 more than any other quarterback has right now. And he has 21 runs of 10-plus yards. That's 10 more than any other quarterback right now. So, I mean, he has something special with Lamar, really dual threat capability. And last season, he really wasn't as great of a passer. But this year, he's shown, you know, he's kind of in that above average, you know, PFF grade right now at the moment. And, you know, I want to bring up this data point. You mentioned, you know, they run a significant amount of pistol.
That's right.
So right now, 44.6% of their total plays are coming out of pistol formation.
That's right.
The next closest is at 5.2%.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So you know what you're going to get when you're playing this football team. You know what they're going to run, and you know how they're going to run it, and from what formation they're going to run it from, right?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's nothing that you've really had to prep for.
That's
before.
right.
You've never really seen it. You've never had to go through those.
Because other teams aren't running a lot of it.
Correct.
Wow.
And, you know, they've been really successful running out of pistol formation. You know, even when Lamar's passing, he has 3 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, and is averaging 8.0 yards per attempt.
That's where I think Lamar Jackson is a little bit different from all the other running quarterbacks I remember Colin Kaepernick, his game even topped out at a certain level when he was forced to play in the pocket. We know RG3 was injured. He was sort of trending in this direction as one of those mobile guys who was this super dual threat kind of quarterback. Michael Vick's probably been the most successful of those quarterbacks. I always look at Steve Young as a guy who was always a passer, who could actually run. These guys are runners trying to become passers. But what does the numbers show with Lamar Jackson now making throws from the pocket? Because I see him making a concerted effort to improve in that area.
Yeah, and I was watching the NBC broadcast of the game, and the boss man over at PFF, Chris Collinsworth,
that's right.
He brought up the point saying, if you went up to a stranger on the street and you asked him about Lamar Jackson, they'd probably say he's better off outside the pocket than he is inside.
Yeah.
That's really not the case.
That's not the case.
Not the case at all. He's had 229 dropbacks inside the pocket and just 70 outside the pocket. Mm-hmm. And when he's inside the pocket passing, he's 13th in passing grade at 79.2. But when he's outside the pocket, that drops down to 56.1. That's 17th.
There you go. So he's a better passer in the pocket. So and that's the way I saw the Patriots trying to defend him. Let's keep him in the pocket. Let's make him prove that he can play from the pocket. Well, he did, and he beat you. That's how you're used to playing most of these mobile guys. You don't want them to get outside the pocket where they break contain. Now they have the option to either run or pass. You keep them in the pocket, contain them. You're betting that they're not good enough, like the Drew Breeses or the Tom Bradys, to beat you from the pocket. And that's where Lamar Jackson is proving everybody wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And really the scary part about this offense is that he really doesn't have a go-to wide receiver.
That's right.
Like Drew Brees, he has Michael Thomas, Deshaun Watson, he's got DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
When you look at their wide receiving unit, all he really has is Marquise Hollywood Brown, the rookie. And he's been out a few games, and we see the difference when he's on the field. So he's using a lot of his running backs and tight ends in the passing game. He has the fourth most targets to a non-wide receiver, and he's 8th in PFF passing grade on those targets.
Something tells me since the week 9 loss in the Sunday night game, Patriots Bill Belichick is going to spend the rest of this season on some secondary projects, trying to figure out, if I see Lamar Jackson again, I better have a plan. And it better be the one that we used on the Sunday night game when they were not able to beat the Baltimore Ravens. Something tells me these two teams are going to meet again, and that's why we're talking about it. They could be the impediment to the New England Patriots getting back to the Super Bowl. Let's talk about the Chiefs, because Patrick Mahomes, in his 2 games last year against the Patriots, he blew it up. 7 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, 8 big-time throws combined in those 2 games, and only 4 turnover-worthy plays. And his offense in those 2 games against the Patriots last year, one up at Gillette Stadium, the other one at Arrowhead, the Chiefs scored a combined total of 71 points in 2 games against the Patriots. So I got to ask you, with Patrick Mahomes coming back, how might they serve as an impediment to the Patriots possibly getting back to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Mahomes really hasn't been the same guy that we saw last season, this season. And, you might point to that to his ankle, because that's been lingering before he sat out to the knee injury. And you brought up his performances against New England last season. And granted, he had some great plays. You mentioned 8 big-time throws. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays, and as a result, he had his lowest grade of the season in a single game was in Week 6 against New England. He had a 64.9 grade, and then in the conference championship game, that one wasn't too far behind at 69.9. So he didn't throw a lot of accurate passes, just a little bit over 50% of the time.
Yeah.
And really, you look at what the New England defense did to Mahomes on these plays. They ran a lot of cover 0 against Mahomes, and that kind of got to him. 11 of his 67 attempts against New England were against cover 0. In all the other games combined that season, he had just 24.
Wow.
So you kind of have to think, is Belichick going to go back to this and kind of figure out this might be the kryptonite to Mahomes?
Well, that'll be interesting, though, also, if Andy Reid will say, this is what we got mostly in those 2 games. Let's figure out what we need to do if we get that again. That's the chess match between Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. You kind of love to see those 2 hook up on the football field again. So we'll dive into that. But these are 2 teams that could possibly serve as an impediment that could prevent the Patriots from getting back to the Super Bowl, playing in Miami. We don't know who they're going to play on the NFC side. We think the NFC is absolutely loaded with a lot of good teams. But the AFC, if we go into our data, and we believe that it's highly predictive, right? That everything is trending toward Patriots, Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs. Who could be an outlier there? Could the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson? Could just possibly.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to make a case for any other team in the AFC, you have to look at the Texans' way, and that's mostly because they have, a guy that could potentially win the MVP in Deshaun Watson.
That's right.
I mean, they're missing J.J. Watt, which certainly hurts, but, I mean, they have to be considered the outlier, if anyone.
That helps us move on to our next segment, because we want to talk about some of the best MVP candidates for 2019. And this is going to be all you. I want you to help us understand who might be the Super Bowl MVP. We're at the halfway point in the season, and we've got some great names in terms of quarterbacks. We even have a running back on the list. So what do you got, Anthony?
Yeah, and, I kind of been hearing some talk over the last few weeks about who should be the MVP. And, after Aaron Rodgers lit up the Raiders, people were like, I mean, he's the runaway MVP. He's going to win it. That lasted 1 week. He didn't have a good game, but we'll talk a bit more about that later. And really, right now, this award is Russell Wilson's award to win.
Wow.
I mean, it has been jaw-dropping what this guy has been doing on the field. Right now, he's our highest-graded quarterback with a 91.9 elite PFF grade, and he's been producing big-time throws. He has a second-highest rate at 7.2%. And for perspective on that, the league average is at 3.8%. So that's a pretty big jump there. And then you look at the turnover-worthy play rate.
Oh, my goodness, right?
It's down to 1.1%.
Very low.
That's a half percent better than any other quarterback in the NFL. So it's pretty insane what this guy has been doing as far as limiting mistakes when he's throwing the ball. He has just one turnover-worthy play on throws of 10-plus yards.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty
That's incredible,
ridiculous.
because he's pushing the ball down the field and still is very protective of the ball. He only has one interception so far in their first 9 games.
Yeah, and when we dive into the PFF database and really look at his deep passing numbers, I mean, it just keeps, like I was diving into it and I couldn't believe it. Like I kept thinking I had something wrong just because he was up here, everyone else was down here. He's one of 2 quarterbacks to not record a turnover-worthy play on a deep pass attempt. The other is Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, you might want to pay attention to that, but we're not going to get into that too much right now. But he has the most deep passing yards in second inaccurate pass rate on those, and third in uncatchable pass rate. So really, I mean, these have been perfectly placed passes essentially. And just diving into it more, this has been a guy who's been, we know he's been good creating outside of the structure and pass, but this year he's really, elevating himself to the top and really untouchable in that category.
And Tyler Lockett has begun to make plays for him. They're without tight ends because all their tight ends are essentially out with injury, and DK Metcalf, the rookie, has been surprisingly productive. My point is that Russell Wilson, I think a strong case for him for MVP is the fact that he gets it all done without having a whole lot around him. This is no longer the Legion of Boom defense, right? To put him on short field and get turnovers. This defense is getting shredded, as they were by one Jameis Winston in Week 9 at home. But Russell Wilson still put 40-plus points on the board to carry his team to victory. If that doesn't speak to how valuable he is not only to his team but to this league, because he's a guy that plays the quarterback position, I say, as clean as anyone. And I think you talked about it in the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up the Tampa Bay game, and really it was kind of – I felt bad for the rookie cornerback in Tampa, Jamel Dean, because he was getting picked on by Russell Wilson.
Him, yeah.
Gave up 3 touchdowns in coverage, and constantly, every time it seemed like I looked over at that game, he was just throwing to DK Metcalf on Jamel Dean.
That's right.
And he was having his way with it. And he's playing cleanly and not turning the ball over. I mean, he's not giving the defense any opportunity to get a turnover.
That's right.
Is the biggest thing. And he's been performing incredibly well under pressure, too. So when the defenses are coming after him, he's doing great in seeing the field and putting the ball in a good position.
Who's next on our list? What other quarterback? Who's the second guy that would be a strong candidate for MVP in 2019?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit a few minutes ago, and that would be Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
And really, that's the Texans' only hope to get. I kind of put them in the same category as Seattle. In a sense where they're the outlier team, but then again, I would not be surprised if we see them in the conference.
But the quarterback has to be impeccable, has to play at an elite level for that to happen. Do you think Deshaun Watson's capable of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's our 4th highest graded quarterback with an 86.2
Okay.
PFF grade. And really his only downside this season, he's producing big time throws like Russell Wilson is, but he has more turnover worthy plays, which we want to see him limit. But, I was on Twitter the other day and follow our data scientist, George Shahuri, and he tweeted out a good nugget that I found really, really
George
interesting.
Is great.
Yeah, he is. He tweeted out Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, they're number 1 and number 2 in regards to touchdowns earning a positive PFF grade. And those 2 quarterbacks should be the leaders in MVP. And he's exactly right in that. I mean, these guys are producing great plays. And, we saw it a few weeks ago when that play was blown dead, remember, in the red zone. And it kind of seems like they were told, hey, you can't do that with this guy because,
That's right.
Yeah,
your whistle's too quick. He's
exactly.
He's like Houdini. He could escape at any moment.
Exactly. Whether he's going to let out a pass or he's going to take off and run. I mean, he's our 2nd highest graded quarterback rushing the ball. And his yards after contact it's absurd what he's been doing. He's been putting up a fight against good defenses.
And he does have some good receivers. There's no doubt. It helps to have a DeAndre Hopkins. Now, Will Fuller has to get healthy, but Kenny Stills has been really good for that offense as well. It'll be interesting, though, because if they're, let's face it, we said they could be an outlier. We know Bill O'Brien and Bill Belichick, they have some history together. So the Texans have never been able to make it past the Patriots. They get so close, but the Patriots have always been there sort of standing in their way. I know we want to talk about Christian McCaffrey. Can a running back in today's NFL win an MVP? And if he does he have to be of the Adrian Peterson type? When I say of the Christian McCaffrey type, I mean Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, guys who could possibly get 2,000 yards from scrimmage. You almost have to do that to even be considered an MVP as a running back.
Yeah, and he does. To us, he doesn't really have a chance, and we don't believe he should be an MVP candidate. But to the voters,
why is that?
But mostly because just as far as his production goes, his receiving end, that's been his bread and butter.
Yes.
And right now he's 13th in yards per route run among running backs.
13th.
So, exactly. So, I mean, that should speak for itself as far as
not one,
producing
not
on
two,
per route.
13th.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he is currently 3rd in PFF receiving grades. Now, I want to say this. He's been amazing.
Yes, he is.
Christian
He's an
McCaffrey's
amazing
been
player.
good. And he's been separating himself. It's the most replaceable position in all of football, but he's giving himself a slimmer of value compared to other running backs. He's in that, there's just a handful that actually are a little bit better than everyone else as far as you kind of want them on your team.
Yeah.
But with that being said, he's still not an MVP caliber player.
Compared to a quarterback, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't mean as much to his team as a quarterback does. And, his rushing has been good, but when you look at him against a loaded box, he's 18th in PFF rushing grade.
Yeah.
And really, if you want to see anyone you want to see a little bit more in the rushing, and if you want to consider him as an MVP, but even then, it's just still not there.
So when we talk about wins above replacement, George and Eric, they talk about it. I love the data behind WAR, wins above replacement. They talk about that the quarterback adds more value in terms of percentage towards a win than, say, the running back. In other words, one player is more replaceable. You wouldn't want to have to replace Christian McCaffrey. But if you put a backup running back in there, and maybe this guy will do the catching, the other guy will do the running, and you've kind of equated, the production equates to what Christian McCaffrey would give you. But replacing a quarterback on this list, on the MVP list, not just any quarterback, but on the MVP list, becomes so much harder, and they have a higher percentage towards the value of a win than, say, a running back. Did I explain that correctly?
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. And, I kind of want to bring something up. I'm not sure if I said it earlier, but he's 3rd in PFF receiving grade. Yeah. And you look at the 2 running backs ahead of him, they're both backups. Jamal Williams is 2nd, Austin Eckler is 1st. So, I mean, that should kind of speak for that.
They're replaceable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think either of those 2 guys could step into this Carolina offense, and we would not really see much of a difference.
Isn't that something? Now, I know that sounds sacrilege to all those Carolina Panther fans who love Christian McCaffrey. I love CMC. Trust me. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's proven that he can run between the tackles when a lot of people didn't think he could do so coming out of Stanford. He's proven us all wrong. I love watching him play. He's athletic. This guy's one of the most difficult players to tackle in the open field. But when we're talking about most valuable player for the 2019 season, and we talk about wins above replacement, in other words, which players have a higher percentage of terms of your ability to win, guys like Russell Wilson register higher. Guys like Deshaun Watson, they rate higher. How about Patrick Mahomes? Does he still have a shot to win MVP?
I believe he does have a shot, but based off what we've seen, it's not looking good. You know, right now, he's currently our 13th highest graded quarterback. He has a 77.6 grade. You know, he's been producing a lot of big-time throws, so you kind of have to dive into it deep and kind of understand why is Patrick Mahomes receiving such a lower grade compared to what he put up last season when it was, you know, the second highest in all of football, around 93. And really, his accuracy downfield just hasn't quite been the same. You know, he's overthrowing a lot of receivers, and he's also placing the ball in front of his receivers a significant amount in just a lot of uncatchable passes. And it kind of seems like his passes are boom or bust. It's either going to be a dime right on the money or it's gone. It's over.
Yeah, but the thing is, and here's what I like about Patrick Mahomes, is for as much of a gunslinger as he is, he doesn't throw a lot of picks. Only one interception, right, compared to, 15 touchdown passes? So even while some of those boom or bust, if the bust is, it's an incompletion and not a turnover, I'll take that. Because for a guy who's a gunslinger, he doesn't turn it over a whole lot.
Exactly. And, you know, as I mentioned, you know, he has a lot of incompletions that are on him. I mean, solely on him.
Exactly.
But
Agree.
he's not giving it to the defense.
That's
he's throwing
right.
it away from the defense.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, going back to his downfield throwing, he's 14th in passing grade. Not a whole lot of interceptions, but he's throwing a lot of uncatchable passes. He's 20th in the uncatchable pass rate we have, led by our quarterback charting process. So, I mean, he's, like, as you said, it's valuable in a sense that he's not turning the ball over, but there's some throws he needs to be making that he isn't making.
See, that's the thing. I think everyone loves Patrick Mahomes. He burst on the scene as a rookie with over 5,000 passing yards and over 50 touchdowns. Only the second quarterback in the 100-year history of our league to ever do that. And that other guy was Peyton Manning toward the end of his career. And here this guy makes it look easy, do it in his very first year as a starter playing in this league. And so when we start to go through our data and we start to point out some of the imperfections, I think some people take that personal because they really do like Patrick Mahomes. We want you to know we here at PFF, we really like Patrick Mahomes. But there's something about the data, it doesn't lie. You know, we grade every player on every play. And so all we're doing is really relaying what the data shows. How much of this, because when I watch quarterbacks, I understand that accuracy comes from having a really strong base. He's got good, strong legs. Now, obviously, he's got arm talent. But when you start to sustain injuries to the ankle, injuries to a dislocated kneecap, when that leg base begins to become affected, how might that affect his accuracy moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly will. And when you look at his performance, you know, creating outside of the structure, outside of the pocket, compared to inside the pocket when he's clean, you know, it's a pretty big difference. And it almost seems like when he is under duress, the adrenaline gets him through a play and he's producing good results. But when he's in a clean pocket, you can kind of see it's been bothering him. You know, right now he's 17th in passing grade from a clean pocket and 28th in negatively graded play rate. He has the 7th most incompletions that are on him alone. So it does seem like it is affecting him a bit. And when he's going towards his first read, it hasn't been as successful as what we saw last season.
Wow. Still a lot of play action passes for the Kansas City Chiefs on offense. When we talk about wins above replacement, Patrick Mahomes, you would think, is not so replaceable. But dare I say, Matt Moore steps in and he wins a big-time game against a very tough Minnesota Vikings defense. I thought it was very impressive. It was a game the Kansas City Chiefs needed. If they're going to be an impediment to, say, the New England Patriots, getting to the Super Bowl, I mean, they're going to need to start winning some games. And, boy, they were able to do it even without Mahomes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going into this game, I kind of thought it as one is where I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings won. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs won.
Yeah.
You know, and the Chiefs were getting a lot of, getting called out on, maybe without Mahomes, that defense isn't there. You know, there's just not enough there to get to the championship.
Yeah.
And they kind of proved them wrong against the Vikings.
That's right.
They really shut them down a little bit. And you got to give credit to Chris Jones too on the line. I mean, he was impeccable.
The defense played so much better for the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's going to do it. Is that it for our MVP, our potential MVP candidates?
Yeah, just had one more dark horse, Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's hard to ignore what he's been doing.
Good point.
And, you know, week 3 he had a bad game against the Chiefs at a 35.0 PFF grade, but take that out, and he was the second highest graded quarterback in the NFL, and the only other one with an elite PFF grade next to Russell Wilson.
Wow.
It's Lamar Jackson.
Wow, that's awesome. Lamar Jackson, he's sort of itching up the ballot box for MVP candidate in 2019. Something tells me he could possibly get that done. We're going to step aside right now because it's time to have a wonderful one-on-one conversation in our interview with NFL great 15-year veteran and former New England Patriot linebacker, Willie McGinest. All right, it's now my pleasure to say hello to NFL Network analyst Willie McGinest, a 15-year career in the National Football League, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, joining us on the PFF Wisdom of Solomon podcast with Anthony Treash. And Willie, let's go ahead and get started by talking about your former team, the New England Patriots, in a Sunday night game going up against Lamar Jackson. I had this defense as one of the best defenses in the NFL that I had seen in a very long time, but yet and still, even they were perplexed with trying to figure out how to stop Lamar Jackson. So I'll ask you, you've defended against some of the greats. How do you stop a Lamar Jackson?
Well, I think, Solly, the first thing you gotta be extremely disciplined. And you got to execute. And, you know, I think the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, does a great job of alignments and formations and keeping you off balance with his scheme. And when you have a dynamic player like Lamar Jackson, and then you got a downhill runner like Mark Ingram, it's not like you got to account for one guy. You got to account for multiple guys in that running system. So when I watched the first quarter of the Patriots game, it seemed like they kind of caught him off balance. Some of the traditional things that Patriots defense was doing, like setting the edge and playing great technique, they just wasn't. And, you know, you could be a great defense and have an off game, but when you're playing against a team that focuses on certain runs and, you know, they're physical in the trenches, their O-line also, you know, deserves a lot of credit. You got to be on top of your game. And we saw them kind of clean some things up and look better after the second quarter. But, one mistake, as you saw the other night, can turn into a big play, and it did.
Well, why is it that this type of offense that you see with Greg Roman and with the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, we played against option offenses in high school and then even again in college. What is it about playing it at the National Football League level that tends to add a certain level of complexity where we tend to lose our discipline and our fundamentals to be able to stop an option offense at the NFL level with the likes of Lamar Jackson?
Well, I think the biggest difference is you have multiple runners in the backfield that could hurt you, whether you're handing the ball off, you know, they're reading the ends and linebackers, or, you know, they're keeping the ball. And you got really great athletes at those positions. But I think now when you incorporate the RPOs, where they pull it, and they also got the pass game involved in it, it makes it extremely difficult because if you've watched that game, you know, Lamar Jackson's just not a runner. He's going to throw the ball too. He's going to pull it. So they're going to give you that play action. If they had success earlier in that running game, then they're going to set you up with it. They want those linebackers to step up. You have to respect it, especially if it's giving you problems. And then right when you do that, you got slants and you got routes going on in that mid to intermediate routes area. And you got to defend against that as well. When you start defending against the pass, somebody who's reading that defense really well, they'll hand the ball off because now you're dropping in the coverage or he's keeping it and running. So it happens really fast. It doesn't give you a lot of time to adjust or react. If you don't know what you're doing, guys are already moving, getting on blocks, creating running lanes, or the ball's coming out quick behind you for a big play in the passing game.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson actually is playing at a whole different level because he's now beginning to make plays in the pocket, throwing the football down the field One might begin to liken him to a more athletic Russell Wilson. And if that's the case, then NFL defenses better beware. Let's move on to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. You're out there on the West Coast. You get a chance to take a look at this defense that plays a little bit differently than, say, the New England Patriots. This is a defense that's built around their defensive front with 5 former first-round picks on that defensive line. What are you seeing from the San Francisco 49ers defense? And is this the kind of defense that could lead them to, say, a Super Bowl title?
Well, I know it's a defense that can get you to the Super Bowl because it reminds me of the 49ers that played against Baltimore in the Super Bowl years back. And anytime, Solly, you know this, you can control the trenches. It makes it easier for every level of the defense. It makes it easier for the defensive backs and the linebackers. And you include the linebackers in that front 7. So they do a great job of stopping the run, controlling the trenches. They also do a good job is once they get ahead and making you one-dimensional, they got multiple guys that can win the one-on-one battles up front and get to the quarterback. And they don't have to necessarily blitz all the time because it reminds me of the Giants that won in 2007 and 2011. They can get home with their rotational guys right up front with the 4 to 5 guys, 6 guys they got rotating up front, which allows you to drop 7 in coverage and give different looks. And it also, if you talk to a defensive back, it allows them to gamble a little bit more and sit on routes and take chances because they know the ball has to come out. If the ball's not coming out, it's either a sack or a pressure or, the quarterback's going to make a erratic decision. So for the defensive backs, it's a great scheme. And when you watch them, that's how championships are built. Can you run the football? Can you play great defense, create turnovers, stop teams from getting in the end zone? And right now, it looks like the 49ers have that formula.
There's no doubt. Old schools, to say the least, in terms of how they play defense and their ability to run the football among some of the best in the National Football League. I got to ask you about your boy Jimmy Garoppolo. Like you, Jimmy G is a former Patriot. And going into Week 9, into that Thursday night game, I think that was maybe the only lingering question about the San Francisco 49ers is what role does Jimmy G play with this football team? They run the ball so well. They play such great defense. What have you seen now from Jimmy Garoppolo that leads you to believe, is he a guy that can ride this team and if not carry and take this team to a Super Bowl?
Well, it's a small sample size when you talk about the passing game. And I think when you look at the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan does a great job at game planning every single week differently. It's game plan specific. So when you look at the team they played at Thursday night, they had a bad secondary that gave up big plays. That's why we saw Emmanuel Sanders, who was just traded, come in and have a big night. Of course, Kittle having a big night. This defense struggled. Even, Patrick Peterson, the all-pro cornerback, he struggled with some of the schemes and routes and formations and different things that they did in the one-on-ones and in the passing game. So when you're playing against certain teams that struggle in certain phases of the game, good coordinators attack that until you beat it or find a way to stop or make those adjustments. But back to your original question, Jimmy G got paid a lot of money to come in and not just be a game manager. I think there's going to be some games where he's going to have to either go on the road or he's going to be behind, and he's going to have to put the team on his back in a 2-minute situation or when they're down 14 points, and he's going to have to throw the ball and abandon the run to come back. I know he possesses a specific skill set because he was drafted high. We've seen him do it. But again, it's a small sample size. The great quarterbacks, the Drew Breeses, the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's, you can go down the line, the Russell Wilsons. We've seen them time and time again when they get in those situations, come through, make plays, play great situational football. And I think that he showed a snippet that he can do that. But if they play the way they've been playing, he's not going to be in that position that many times. They get a lead, they run the ball well, they play great defense, they get a lead, and then they go into their 4-minute offense, and it's bully ball at that point. So he showed us that he can do it. The question I think for everybody is, can he do it on a consistent basis? And it's his coach's job not to put him in that position.
Yeah, he certainly is a guy that is surrounded by a lot of talent. Sooner or later, you're right, the quarterback position has to show up. He did that in the Thursday night game against the Arizona Cardinals. And Willie, a couple of more things. I want to get your take on this is, of course, the 100th season in NFL history. You've been around this game for a long time. You made an impact as a 3-time Super Bowl champion. When you look at the game today, what have you seen in terms of how much the game has grown over these 100 years? What element of the game today has caught your eye? What impresses you at this current moment?
Solid, every time I'm around or at school, taking my daughters to school or whatever, people say, "Oh man, you look like you could still play." And I always say, I wish I could, because of the game has grown in so many ways. From the deals that they're doing, with the ownership, the deals that they're doing with the league, the developing of the league, the equipment, things that we're doing to make the game bigger, faster, more physical, but yet safer, the technology that's involved, to be able to go out and have all the resources to make sure our game is played the right way. It's amazing, man. Our game has been the greatest sport for a long time, has dominated. It's not even close. But when you look at the improvement from where it was a long time ago, from even the player, the equipment, all the different brand partners that's involved that make this game so great. It's just crazy, man. These men don't know how lucky they are, the platform and the resources they have, the building blocks, not only for football, but retirement when they're done, the relationships. And I think that the league, the NFL office has done everything in their power to try to make it as safe as possible. The players are starting to understand that they're playing the game different so they can last and play, at a safer rate and play longer. And just even with my old team, I remember playing in the old Foxborough Stadium with the aluminum, benches and all those different things. And where it is now, you walk in, it's Patriot Place. There's so many, partners that's going on there, and the growth and where our franchise started and where it is now. It's still going. Like
right.
The technology, the social media aspect of it, the streaming parts of it, so many different ways to watch the game and be a part of the game. I was just talking to somebody here, Solly, the other day, and I was like, as a player, all we worry about is getting prepared for the game, making sure, we go out, we play at our best. We go out on the field, we put on our armor, we're gladiators, and we play the game. That's our stage. But now that I'm in the media, so many different things that go into just putting on a football game is mind-boggling to me, and how big of a production it is and how many jobs that it provides.
Yeah.
For people now, so many different aspects of the game. It's incredible. I think right here at NFL Network alone, just in Culver, we got 1,200 employees.
Wow.
And that's crazy to me. So
yeah,
this game is growing, and it'll continue.
Yeah, this game has grown, has exploded in popularity. You can go back to the 70s and 80s when Major League Baseball ruled the day, and then it was Michael Jordan and the NBA that ruled the day. But from about the mid-90s on, the NFL has been the number one hottest ticket in all of sports, and now it's expanding around the globe. Before I let you go, I got to talk to you about your career, because you're 15 years in the National Football League, 12 of them helping the New England Patriots build, in my mind, what is the greatest sports dynasty in modern sports. You were a pillar of some of those great teams that were built around the defense until Tom Brady came along. Just kind of help us to understand, because I know you played in the defense and for a coach where stats didn't matter. But yet and still, as we sit here today, Willie, you still hold the all-time sack record in postseason NFL history. You have a combined total over 100 sacks between your regular season and postseason deal. But Bill Belichick, he wasn't letting you just strictly rush the quarterback. So help us to understand your role in terms of how we define it and what it meant to this organization and what it all means to you.
Well, not only my role, I think every player that's on that roster's role, is not just specific to 1 week or one entire year. Like this is what your role, this is what you're doing. Our role changes every single week. And I think when you talk about being unselfish and putting team before individualism, there's not a lot of places that focus on that, especially with the egos and the amount of money that people make. It's hard to get men to buy into that. But I think that, Mr. Kraft, the Kraft family, and Belichick has put together the blueprint for what they think is the best. And I think over the last 20 years, it has been the best because you get a group of people that all believe in the family team atmosphere. Through team success, you get individual success. And sometimes individual stats and numbers and all those things, you sacrifice that for the ultimate stat, which is actually the win. And, I appreciate it. And there were certain times when I was younger in my career, I'd be like, man, I want to rush. I want to get sacks. I want to get numbers. But as we developed this culture in New England, we all decided that, listen, the contracts will come, the facial recognition will come. The Lombardis are why we play the game for the championship and win Super Bowls. That's why we ultimately play the game. Not to get in the Hall of Fame. I don't know many people that come into the league or start playing football and be like, I want to be a Hall of Famer. It's to win championships. And that's a team thing. So I think that's where it all started. And that's where you got guys like myself to buy in. And I think that's why New England is so special, because you got a group of men that work their butts off, and their roles change every week. For me, I wasn't just a pass rusher. If that's all I did, I have easily in regular season 100 and some sacks. But there were multiple games where, our coach said, hey, I need you in pass coverage. This team likes to throw. They likes to spread. You and Mike Vrabel, you or whoever, got to walk out, and you got to cover. And this is what's going to help the team win. So, if you look at my career, largely, a big part of my career, 35% of the time, I was probably in coverage. On third down, yeah, my hand was in the dirt, if that was what it was called for. When it was goal line and I was moved in, as an outside linebacker, defending, the C gap. So a lot of things when you talk about Hall of Fame and going into that, we look at it a little bit different. We got Ty Law in this year, which I think was amazing. Of course, Belichick and Brady will go in, but when you look at some of the other guys I got in, and Seymour, I think, was a finalist. Some of the other guys that we played with, sometimes people brush over, because when you're a true football person, it's what impact, what did offensive coordinators have to do to scheme around you? Did he win the one-on-one matchup? Did people run at him? Did people throw at him? Was he dominant? Did he pretty much dominate guys that he played over? I mean, there's a lot of things that factor into it. Yeah. And I'm just humble and happy that I played in a great franchise. I played with great teammates, and we dominated most of the people that we played with for the majority of my career. And we won, championships. And to be able to share that and have that stuff will last a lifetime. So whatever happens from there, Sally, I'm grateful and I'm humbled by it. But that's why I played the game, was to hoist those Lombardis.
Well, you were certainly a foundational player that helped build a dynasty that is still going till this day. And I can't think of any defensive player that has played for the Patriots during this run who made more impact plays and provided a combination of great leadership that led to winning each and every Sunday. So I want to thank you for coming on. You're already in the Patriots Hall of Fame, so we're pulling for you to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because I think there is a rightful place there for you. Willie McGinest, 15-year NFL veteran, current NFL analyst at NFL Network. I want to thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Hey, appreciate it, Sally. Anytime, man. You do a great job, and I'm sitting in here. Cole Wright swung by. He told me to tell you hello.
That's my boys. Tell them all I said hello.
I got you.
Take care, Willie.
All right.
Okay, we are back, and it's now time to talk about those Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, because it seems like they are who we thought they were. they are a team that's really good, but yet and still, they've yet to fully flower in terms of their head coach and their quarterback and this offense becoming maybe what we all thought at one point it could become. They're not quite there yet. There's no doubt that between the coach and the quarterback and this whole offense trying to fully blossom, because I thought after that Raiders game that we were there, that this offense was clicking. But after playing the LA Chargers in week 9, what did you see? Because this offense failed to take off.
Yeah, definitely. And, after that Raiders game, even I was sitting back and be like, okay, maybe I was wrong about this whole offense. Maybe they are going to be, one of the best offenses in all of the NFL. But after last week, it kind of seemed like they got out-coached and they got out-schemed in facing the Chargers. And, Aaron Rodgers, he's still one of the highest-graded quarterbacks. He has a very good 86.7 PFF grade. Had one of his worst games against the Chargers. And when you really look at what the Chargers defense did, it was they kind of shut him downfield and really played him in a way that no one else had really played him this year. They played a lot of cover 3, and that faced a lot of troubles for Aaron Rodgers.
For Aaron Rodgers, they could not really take advantage of a cover 3 set. You would think they would be able to figure that out. Their head coach for the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, trying to share a brain in terms of cultivating an offense that Aaron Rodgers said that he wanted. He wanted something that would be more innovative, more creative, gave him more flexibility at the line of scrimmage. We'll take a look at the numbers because the data show that the Packers had poor play week 9 on the road at the LA Chargers. A season low 45 yards rushing. Rodgers had a season low of 161 yards passing in this game. And then the Packers had a season low total of only 13 first downs on the offensive side of the ball. And then it was Rodgers' 4th game this season where he had a below average PFF passing grade. That, to me, is incredible considering this is a new offense that was supposed to bring about more explosive plays, more opportunities. And why we saw him against the Raiders with a perfect passer rating and 4 touchdown passes, 5 touchdowns in all, because he ran for 1 in that game. How is it that the Chargers, who are dealing with injuries, that they can just grind this offense to a halt? Tell me it's got to be more than just playing cover 3 zone.
Oh, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's definitely way more than that. And it was far and away their least efficient passing performance all of 2019. And Aaron Rodgers, he really didn't throw the ball downfield a whole lot. He had Davante Adams back, and he had the fewest attempts of 10 or more yards in a game he's had this season, and just had a couple completions on those. Was 0 for 5 on his 20-plus yard deep pass attempts. And, when you look at his targets towards Davante, he targeted him a significant amount. Davante had 7 catches, but it was a lot of quick passes, a lot of short passes at that. He had 7 catches. All of them were under 2.5 seconds time to throw, and an average depth of target on those was 5.9. He just generated 3 yards after the catch. So you kind of have to see, it kind of seemed like Davante Adams wasn't entirely there, and they weren't really maximizing his abilities.
Why did we not see kind of more of what we saw in the Sunday night game from a week before against the Kansas City Chiefs, where I thought Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers did a good job of getting their running backs like Aaron Jones matched up against linebackers, where you don't necessarily have to push the ball down the field and you can get the matchup advantages you want. When a team is so successful doing one thing one week, and I get it, you don't want to become predictable or show your tendencies. Why would you not go back to doing maybe some of the things that worked for you?
Yeah, and that's what I was asking in my head as I went back and watched him.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, why'd you go away from, using the running backs creatively?
Yes.
They didn't really use a whole lot of Aaron Jones in the passing game. We saw in weeks prior, and we saw a lot of successful plays when they did that.
Explosive plays.
Yeah, because they caught the defense off guard, created those mismatches.
Yes.
And, they kind of seemed like they were just forcing a lot to Davante when he wasn't there. As I said, and the reason why this offense really wasn't successful is because they were forcing it and they were targeting him short of the first down marker.
Yeah.
So, he's catching
Hence
the
the
ball.
reason only 13 first downs,
Exactly.
a season low total.
Exactly. And, they played a lot more in coverage. So they respected his passing game. They didn't really respect the run game, and they didn't take advantage of that.
Wow.
They only blitzed him 1 time in this game. So really, I mean,
they were going to sit back in zone coverage, force Aaron Rodgers to check it down. In other words, throw it short of the first down marker, short of the sticks, as we would call it. And they were going to tackle very well and not allow yards after the catch to create first downs. And it seemed like that slow, methodical, sort of bend but don't break kind of defense, that's what that would be, right?
Exactly.
That's kind of what they did, and it worked. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. I mean, it definitely worked for him, and it just kind of seemed like everything was very dull. I mean, for the Packers offense, it never seemed like anything would go their way. You know, it didn't seem like a very good game plan coming in.
And I went and I took a look at the defense. First of all, the Chargers, they had Melvin Ingram back. They have Joey Bosa. They would line them both up to the same side. And so without having to blitz, they still were able to get some pressure on Aaron Rodgers. They had some hits on Aaron Rodgers. I think 11 hurries on Aaron Rodgers in this game. But by the same token, I thought the Packers defense did a really good job of pressuring Phillip Rivers, which is why this game really was close on the scoreboard than maybe what some of the other data points would show. But I thought the Green Bay Packers defense showed up in this game, and it was the offense that really failed them. Yeah,
and I would say the defensive front, they did their job for the Packers. The secondary,
not so
much. And you know, they forced 5 contested targets, and all 5 of those were caught. So that's a big problem.
That's not good.
And you know, it just kind of seemed like the Chargers kind of did what we expected the Packers to do, in a sense where they got creative in the way they were running their offense. You know, they used Hunter Henry a lot, and it was highly successful.
Yeah. How was Melvin Gordon? Is he good enough for you?
You know, I mean, going back to, you know, we were talking about who the highest graded running back is as far as catching the ball.
Austin Eckler again?
It's Austin Eckler. I mean, Melvin Gordon, I mean, he was good, but...
He had 2 rushing touchdowns, I know, in the game.
Exactly. And he was good, but at the end of the day, it wasn't him the reason why they won that game.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Williams, I mean, he was great in his route running. I mean, there was a few times where he just straight out toasted a few guys.
He did.
They picked apart, you know, Jair Alexander, who we've been really high on.
Yes.
You know, he gave up a lot of yards, and he gave up that big play to Mike Williams.
And that's something. These Green Bay Packers, when I say they are who we thought they were, what I meant to say is that they start off the season very slow in that opening game against the Chicago Bears. It was the defense that carried them. And then we kind of started having some concerns about this offense, whether or not it would mesh. And then there were a couple of games where the offense did, and we thought, okay, they've come around. But no, they are who we thought they were initially. And offense still trying to find their way and still need to be carried by their defense. But they're going to need more. They cannot have these kind of hiccups on the road where it was a pro Green Bay Packer crowd there in Carson, California, right? At the Home Depot Center. There was more Packer fans there than there were Charger fans. So it was no reason for the Packers to have this kind of letdown and this kind of low production.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting leading up to the game, hearing Aaron Rodgers be vocal about that.
That's right.
He kind of seemed like he was going to walk in there, you know, business as usual, come over with the W against a kind of underwhelmingly performed Chargers team against their home crowd. And that really wasn't the case. I thought it was very bold of him to do that, something different from him in the way he did it.
Yeah, he had a lot of swagger going into this one. But he did say, coming out of the game, you know what? We got our dose of humble pie. I think they actually had 2 slices because it was a crowd there was ready-made for the Green Bay Packers. Not only do their fans travel well, they have fans in just about every state in the union, including in Southern California. Anthony Treash has been great sitting here talking football with you. We're going to do this every week in our weekly podcast, and I love having you. I know you've got some of your own social sites. Tell people where they can go to find some of your content, because your name is Anthony Treash, but you call it Talking Trash.
Yes, sometimes. That's what some of the guys like to say. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at PFF_Anthony, and I'll have a few articles dropping here and there. Have a rookie rankings actually coming out this Wednesday, and then to piggyback off the MVP discussion we had, I'll have something over that on Friday. We'll also talk about Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year. So you want to see who the best rookies are, be sure to head over to pff.com and get all that fun information.
So if you're one of the young people out there, you love football and you love data analytics, PFF is the perfect place for you. for more content. Of course, you can always go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but you can also go to pff.com to read some of the great articles that we have there for you, where we dive into the data and we give you great stories about what's going on in the National Football League beyond the box score. My name is Solomon Wilcots. This is Anthony Treash. This is the weekly PFF Wisdom of Solomon podcast with Anthony Treash. Don't forget to join us again next week.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.